Thank you. Thank you, Nina, Pallavi, Husham, and Paul. We absolutely loved hearing from you, and I hope everyone found it as insightful and engaging as I did. Now, as we continue with the next session, I just want to check in with all of you. How is everyone doing so far? Say hi in the chat. I hope you are feeling inspired and energized. All right, let's keep things moving and get ready for the keynote. It is my pleasure to present Pallavi Agarwal, the founder and CEO of Kender, a dynamic Salesforce consulting firm based in Washington, D.C. With over 16 years of management consulting experience, Pallavi has become an expert in guiding organizations through successful digital transformations. She has helped many companies enhance their operational efficiency and elevate customer engagement. Now, here is something really special. As Andrew said, it is 4:30 a.m. where Pallavi is joining us from. So let's give her a big virtual round of applause for waking up so early to share her incredible insights with us. Today, she will be sharing her journey, her impact, and how she's driving change that's making real difference in the Salesforce ecosystem. Without further ado, let's welcome Pallavi Agarwal.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you for having me. I'm going to try to hit present and see if this will work. Sorry, guys, just 1 second. We're having technical difficulties.
Yes, now we can see the slide.
Great. Sorry about that, everybody. Thank you for your patience. Welcome and good morning again. And before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to the team for having me. It's really an honor to be here. I know it's 5 a.m., but this is what being part of the community means, giving back. And I love being part of this community. So even though I'm not a morning person, I was like, yes, I will be there virtually if I can. So thank you again for having me. A little bit about me when we'll get into that, but I also want to take a minute to thank our sponsors for making this event happen. And thank you for the YeurDreamin organization team. It's a lot of hard work behind the scenes to make this event happen, even virtually. There's a lot back chatter that I'm seeing as well with the team supporting to make even this keynote happen. So I just wanted to take a minute to thank them for organizing this wonderful event, thanking the sponsors for making the event happen, and most importantly, you as the participants who are here today. Thank you for being here, because I always say if you weren't here, I'd be speaking to an empty room. So I really appreciate you all being here. So a little bit about me. I wanted to start off with just talking about who I am as an individual. So my name is Pallavi. Pallavi. I hear Pallavi. Believe it or not, I get paella on autocorrect a lot. So names have some significance, and me being Indian really is something I'm very proud of. Being of Indian origin, being born in India, moving to America at a young age. But my name also goes deeper than that. In Indian culture, we really believe that names help shape your personalities, really help build out who you are as a person through and through your life, and they have real historical significance against it. So my name actually means flower bud or new shoot. In other parts of India, it's actually lyrical stances through poems or songs. So it has a lot of beautiful meaning to it. And I'm just lucky that my parents named me that, because I see how much it's reflected into my own personality from a creative side, as well as just constantly growing and blooming even through the hardest times in my life. So a little bit about me. I've been in the ecosystem fairly recently. I only joined the Trailblazer community or learned about it in 2018. I started working with Salesforce at the end of 2016. So fairly new into the Salesforce ecosystem, but have been consulting for over 20 years now in Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies. And we'll get into my career journey soon. But I've also been a design architect and a design ambassador for the Salesforce community. I was honored with the Golden Hoodie by Parker in 2023, which was probably one of the biggest moments in my life. Very humbling. And I have been lucky enough, very blessed to be able to travel the world to speak in thought leadership and contribute to blogs in our Salesforce ecosystem around topics that are relevant to the work that we do today around AI, design thinking, pulling consulting requirements and doing right delivery and implementations. Outside of that, I'm also the board leader for the Women Founders Group. So any women founders in the audience, like those who have your own companies, please personally message me. We have a wonderful community group inside of Salesforce where we really support each other. And then one of my biggest passions in life is giving back to the community in different ways, like mentoring and coaching women in tech, being the co-leader of the DC admin group, and also one of the co-creators of Bubba Blazer. Outside of doing all the things that I do, I really am passionate about snowboarding, traveling the world, and hiking different mountains through the world when I have time. So let's talk about my journey, right? And I hope this will resonate with each of you in your own journey. So my career really started back in 2005 when I was graduating college. I joined Accenture, but I joined Accenture accidentally is the best way I can put it. I was graduating college in June of 05, and near graduation, I was having major life crises because I was graduating with marketing and international business as my majors, and I did not know how to align my career to my academic focus. For marketing at the time, it was all telemarketing jobs. You had to start by cold calling because that's just how it was back then, and that was just not something that I could do. It was not in my DNA. And for international business, I think from a global scale, it was still sort of new of like what is international business. And my school, being one of the top schools in the country, luckily just happened to have a consulting panel. And literally, the sign on the door at my school said, "Don't know what to do with your life as you're graduating. Come join the consulting panel." So I went to the consulting panel. It was Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, and Booz Allen, and they all represented their different companies and the type of work they were doing. And there was something about Accenture that was just like, okay, this sounds great. This sounds like a fit. I get bored very quickly. I want to be able to switch projects. I'm going to be learning new things all the time. And best of all, I'm going to be able to travel because I'll be in consulting. So I applied for Accenture. I got lucky enough to land a job with them. And that's really where my career started trajecting. And I remember my first day on the job, I was assigned to Department of State, which is a federal agency in the US. And we were building out a custom, like we were basically gutting out PeopleSoft financials and making it custom inside for supply chain. So I helped design the supply chain for Department of State to move shipments around the world. But I still remember when I started that journey, my day one on the job was I was going to be a QA, quality assurance analyst, and we were 3 months from going live, and I needed to start testing the software. And I still remember that day because in my head I was just like, "What is software?" And that's how my journey started in the tech world, was just learning everything as I went. And within months I was doing the demos independently in front of the government clients who were at the time like third or fourth under Secretary of State, and learning this and really building, designing, implementing, doing all of the SLD, working with our tech team to say that to build the system out. Then once we launched it, I went to a different agency, helped design their supply chain. And then eventually I was like, I've done federal for 7 years. I really want to try something different. So I went into the commercial practice, and Deloitte found me. And all of a sudden, I also finally got to travel, because when I was at Accenture, because I live in DC and my clients were in DC, I never got to travel. So Deloitte hired me, and I started traveling to LA cross country every week. And that's how I got introduced into the commercial practice, into banking. And that was when the big Bank of America scandal had happened for mortgage back, where their systems weren't calculating properly and taking extra money out of the consumers. It was a big scandal. And so Deloitte was in charge of rebuilding that system in a more correct way of making sure that the people who were paying these mortgages were actually being given a fair chance. And so we were responsible for that. And then from there, I decided to take a little break, which I called my mini retirement. And I went and got an MBA, because at that point I had been consulting for almost 8 years. And I just was a little burnt out. I thought maybe I should explore something outside of consulting. So I went back to go get my MBA. And while I was getting my MBA, I moved to California for it, and I got introduced to this world of Hollywood and studios. And just watching TV, being a movie buff, I did not actually realize how much technology goes into everything in those studios. And so I was lucky enough to land a job at Disney. That's where I worked on Romby, which has now been bought out, but used to be a on the go analytics tool. And so we were trying to build that out for Disney and get it to the executive teams, where you could pull reports on the go, get the metrics on your mobile, and move forward into meetings. And then streaming and cloud was just starting to become a thing in that time. And so I moved over to Fox for an internship and actually helped them QA their streaming app, because we were just launching, all the companies, all the studios were launching their own streaming apps. And there's actually formulas that go into it, in America at least, is for a 30-minute show, you have to have X number of minutes of ad time, and then you have to break that into segments. So part of my job in QAing was working with our team to ensure we were putting the ad times accurately, that if it's a 30-minute show, it's actually only 25 minutes plus 5 minutes of ad time. And then you have to sync it throughout the segment. But also then you had to test it to make sure it worked across the streaming apps, like this streaming platforms. Like I was using Samsung TVs to Roku's and things like that, to make sure that it was all working as it should. So that was like the genesis of my career, of like, wow, we're moving from ERP systems to now these cloud and streaming and mobile. And that's where, after my internships and my MBA, I actually moved over to Silicon Valley and went to start work for a startup consulting firm. So I went from like hundreds of thousands of employees to being employee number 10 at Verity Consulting. And that's where I really saw what the startup world looked like. Started working with a Fortune 100 company there, where we were doing SAP CRM. That was my first introduction to the CRM world, as well as cloud. So we were actually gutting out Oracle ERP and implementing SAP CRM. And I was in charge of being the PM for master data management as well as business intelligence. And then also I was the PM for the global change lead. So I was at the front and the back end of the CRM cycle, as well as then how are we going to do change across the world for this big implementation to ensure that there's right adoption, users are getting what they need, and that it's a successful system. So I did that for a while. And part of the reason I left, and this is a secret that you'll learn through this through my presentation, is I am fairly lazy, and being at Verity and driving from San Francisco to Sunnyvale, California, took me 2 hours each way in my commute. And I was getting really burnt out because I was working 70, 80-hour weeks with that commute. So I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So I actually found a different company, Pierce Washington, that actually had offices in San Francisco. So now my commute time went from 2 hours to 20 minutes. And that was the only reason I joined that company, was their offices were local. And first time ever in the consulting world, I found a consulting firm that only worked 40 hours a week, which I had never heard of. So as a joke, I applied to this company and I was like, yeah, right. There's no consulting firm out there that does 40 hours. And I went and interviewed. I met their team. I started asking how much they work. And they were all like, about 35 hours. I'm like, there's no way. And they're like, no, it really happens. So I was like, okay, let me try it. And I remember the partners asking me, do you know anything about CPQ? I'm like, no, I don't even know what CPQ stands for. But I still got the job. And within a week of getting the job of and implementing Oracle CPQ, they handed me one of their top financial firm accounts and said, go implement this with a team. So I had to learn Oracle CPQ on the fly as I was leading the delivery for a Fortune 100 financial firm in America. From there, I needed to come back to DC to be closer to my family. And so I started reaching out to my friends and I was like, hey guys, I'm looking to move back to DC. Does anyone know if your companies are hiring? And a random friend was like, hey, Pallavi, my company's hiring. Why don't you just apply here, send me your resume? So I did. And that company was Acumen Solutions. And believe it or not, I knew nothing about Salesforce. So when I interviewed with Acumen, I got through most of their rounds. And for the final round, they wanted me to fly back to DC for an all-day interview. And I had no more vacation left at my current Pierce Washington company. So I was like, how am I going to do this interview? I can't ask for time off. I have no more PTO left. I need to do this interview. And I remember HR had mentioned there was a conference that the team was going to come out to in San Francisco. So I just asked HR, I was like, hey, the folks that are going to be interviewing me in this all-day thing, are they going to be coming to San Francisco in the next few weeks for this conference you were mentioning? And she's like, they are. I was like, well, can I just interview there then? Because then it'll also save you money for paying for my flights out there. And HR was a little perplexed. And they were like, let me get back to you. This has never been asked. And they did. They got back to me and they were like, okay, instead of doing a full day interview, we're just going to do an hour for you at this conference. But instead of you meeting one partner at a time, we're just going to put all 5 partners at a round table. And they're just going to do like a firing round with you. And I was like, okay, no problem. Let's do it. Little did I know that conference was Dreamforce. So believe it or not, I interviewed with Acumen at Dreamforce in 2016. Again, living in San Francisco, because I was working with Oracle and I was in the Oracle world, I knew everything about Open World, which is the equivalent of, it's similar to Dreamforce, but nothing about the Salesforce world besides the fact that they had a brand new tower in downtown San Francisco. So Acumen's like, what do you know about Salesforce? I'm like, nothing. I just know there's a tower here. And they just started laughing and they're like, so why should we hire you? And I was like, well, I'm really good at what I do. And, but they're like, but you don't know the product. I'm like, yeah, but I didn't know Oracle CPQ either. And I didn't know Rombi. I didn't know SAP CRM. I didn't know Java, but I've done all of these successful implementations time over time because a lot of it's around the framework and I can learn the technology. And I think they really liked my confidence, but they also just wanted to test me. So surprisingly, they gave me the job and I moved back to DC, and that's how I was introduced to the Salesforce world. And as soon as I joined Acumen, they handed me one of their top 10 accounts as a portfolio manager and said, you own this entire portfolio now. Go go make sure all the implementations are happening. Again, knew nothing about Salesforce, and I learned that one of my teams was implementing Service Cloud, and so I very quickly dove right in, learned Service Cloud with my team, and implemented it. We were very delayed on that engagement, but we somehow got the train back on track. By the time we were live, we had zero bugs and zero downtime, which I was very proud of our team for what we delivered. And so in 2018, I had this epiphany of, okay, I went from being a QA analyst to running a mini company inside of Acumen, because when you're a portfolio manager, you're responsible for your own team, hiring, your P&L. And so I thought to myself, like, I feel like I've learned everything I can. I've always wanted to have something of my own as a company. Maybe now's the time to start it. And what do I have to lose? So in 2018, Candor was born, and 7 years later, we're still here. And the reason I give you guys my journey is to show you that at any point in your life, you can pivot and pivot and pivot some more, as long as it's core to you and you're learning and it fits your needs. Like when I joined Accenture, I was just trying to get a job where I wasn't going to be bored and maybe get some travel. When I joined Deloitte, I was looking for something new and learning a different side of the industry. When I was at Disney and Fox, I was learning mobile and new technologies. And then I moved to Verity to really not make myself a dinosaur, because I think I was 29 when I joined Verity. And part of the reason I did that was I'm 29, and if I don't learn this cloud stuff now, I will become a dinosaur in my career. And then what? Because I could see how much ERP was going away. And so then over time, I just went from Verity to Pierce Washington, because at that time it was about wanting a shorter commute for my sanity and my mental health. Then it was coming close to be with my family and move back to DC. Then it was something about me, of a dream I had. So every time I pivoted and changed careers or went to a different company, it was because my needs for myself were changing. And I think that's like really like the key part is check in with yourself and see where you're at and think about the needs that you have. Are they being met? If not, where can I go? How can I network to get myself to the area to fulfill the needs I have? And then check in again, because those needs do change at times. So along that road was also like pivotal moments that helped me learn to check in on myself through my journeys. So, like there's reflect back on your own journeys and think about those life-changing moments. I always joke that my first life-changing moment was when my parents were trying to get rid of me because they sent me to India by myself from America at 13. I don't know whose parents do that, but I traveled the world alone to and from India back to the US. I think they were counting on me not coming back. Were like, this girl can't figure it out. But I did. I surprised them. Especially the return was very challenging. I was transiting through de Gaulle. I don't speak French. And this is really going to date me because this was in the 90s. You had to buy little calling cards and then find a payphone and do an international calling card to call your family. So I went to the store with sign language, figured out how to buy a calling card, went to the payphone, told my mom, like, I'm safe. I've made it to France. I'm going to wait for my connection to come back to the US. And the only advice she gave me was like, don't fall asleep. There's a lot of theft that happens. Don't lose your luggage. And I was very, very nervous, but I made it back. And, looking back later, like a year or two later, even in college, I was like, wow, what were my parents thinking sending me to India by myself at 13? But hey, I figured it out. So I think I can figure out more in my life, right? If I can do that at 13, I'm sure I can do more in my life. So another pivotal moment was when I accidentally graduated early. I was a double major and a double minor, which in the US usually means about 5 years of schooling. I accidentally finished college in 3.5 years, and accidentally was because I didn't want to graduate in 5. I doubled up on my credits. I would take extra classes and get permission from the university. So I would take on average at least 5 classes a semester versus the 3 to 4 they recommended. And then I took summer schools so I could speed it up a little, but I sped it up too much. So I was going to graduate in December, and that was going to be really, really bad for me because in the US they just don't hire as much in the wintertime as they do when you're graduating in the summer. And I was very lucky at that point that Johnson and Johnson was actually offering a 6-month internship where you could take a semester off and go work with them full time. And so I was able to do that. I got the co-op, and it was life changing for me because that was the first time I realized how much I was like not ready for corporate America. It really gave me that early on experience to understand that I was not built to sit at a desk all day in the same job over and over again. And so when I came back to finish my last semester, that's how, when the consulting panel came through, it was a light bulb moment for me. Like, this is what I need to be doing because I've already realized I get bored quickly. I want to be able to do new things every few months. And so I entered consulting, and I thought it was just going to be a way to just get some work experience and then figure out where my life was going to go. But I never realized how much I was going to fall in love with consulting. And through, I think this was the best thing I'd ever done for myself. And my career just started there. Um, I don't know how many of you remember CrowdStrike last summer, where the entire travel industry was brought to a halt for days because something wasn't tested, and it was like one piece of code that didn't get tested that brought the whole world down for travel. Well, you're looking at the infamous No Test Annie, because I actually brought Department of State down for 3 days where no shipments were clearing any ports in the world for Department of State. And when shipments don't clear the ports when they're supposed to, you actually get fined. So they not only did I break the system across the world, I also helped Department of State incur a lot of fines for those days because I didn't test one ad hoc scenario. I tested every other scenario that was like the right paths, the no test paths, but I didn't try to break the system as well as I could have. And some code passed, and it took us 3 days to uncover it and get the system back up and running. That was one of the biggest life lessons I had, because today I can find bugs in less than 30 seconds because I was like, I will never do that again. For a year, my clients joked, and that was my nickname, No Test Annie. And I really had to redeem myself by learning a big lesson in that is like, don't rush through things, quality over quantity, and take your time, take a breath. And it's okay if mistakes happen, but learn from them, right? Mistakes will always happen. We're humans. We are always going to make mistakes. But the pivotal moments really become about learning from those mistakes and moving forward from them and ensuring that you don't repeat the same mistake. You might repeat a similar mistake that's different, but you're learning again. And then, as I mentioned about the dinosaur part, like that was really about switching from ERP to cloud. So stay relevant, right? Like that was one thing that I'm so glad in that moment. This new cloud thing that was happening all around, which people weren't bought into at the time, it was really starting to take off. And I'm so lucky and blessed that I was able to pivot and had that foresight to say, no, I need to go over here and really learn this technology to stay relevant in my career. And I would say today, out of all of these, and there's more moments, but these are the few that I like to call out, is really taking that chance and that risk of starting Candor. Candor started in April 2018. We're about to come up on our 7-year anniversary, but I actually created the name Candor and filed for it in 2015. And it was in the middle of the night where I thought about candor, or like having my own company. And I was like, what am I going to name it? And at like 3 a.m., I'm just writing words that describe me, or people that have used words or adjectives to describe me. And I just started going down a rabbit hole of taking those words, looking up definitions, looking up the words in the thesaurus, finding words that I like, and checking to see if any websites are available for it. And most of the websites were already taken for every word I would find, until I stumbled on the word candor, Candor. And I read that definition, and immediately it was like, oh my God, that's me. That is 1000% me. And at that time in 2015, that was when companies were naming things in a funky way. So then I was like, what if I just change the C to a K and this to a this? And I looked up candorconsulting.com, Kander consulting.com. And my heart sank because it was already taken. But I was already bought into this name, and I was like, this is it. So then I was like, okay, what about Candor Consult? And candorconsult.com was not taken. I immediately emailed my dad, and I was like, can you help me figure out how to purchase this site? He helped me figure it out. And then year over year, we just renewed it. And 3 years later, we launched it into an actual thing, into giving birth to it 3 years later. So it was an idea and a concept in 2015. And I was like, one day I'll get to it. I don't know what it'll be about. And in 2018, it was just the right moment, from learning all the things I had, putting myself in the career paths that I had, to then give birth to Candor. And I will say I've been loving this journey that I've been on for 7 years, and I don't think I'll ever look back. So keep those pivotal moments. Think about your own pivotal moments, because each one of us is really trailblazing our own journey and building these chapters in our book. And they add and add and add, and they never detract. Even if you feel like you're going a little backwards, which I had at times, when I look back at everything, I was like, actually, I wasn't. I was supposed to be there in that moment and learn from it, so I could have this additional chapter in the future. Another big part of my journey was learning my worth. So living in DC, it's a very big bubble. I never realized my worth in the industry until I left DC. I learned how to say no, and that was really big. When I say power of no, like learning to say no to things, but also like learning to say no to things that does not feed you, does not fill your cup. Learning to negotiate, to know your worth, and then also identifying your strengths and capabilities. There are a lot of things I am not great at, and I now know that about myself, but there are things I am really good at. So what I try to do is really focus on the things that I'm really good at. And then if the things that I'm not really good at, if I can't learn more, or I just know that like that's never going to be a strength of mine, I find others to help fill that gap with me, so we can be fully whole together and complement each other, versus trying to be all. I think when you try to be all, we end up failing. And that's part of the power of no, right? Knowing when to say, okay, this is just not my strength. I need to go find that capability elsewhere to complement me. I don't think, but it doesn't make sense for me to expunge energy there. The power of negotiation was really cool, because at Pierce Washington, that was the first time I also learned my worth, but also the negotiation. Because when I was interviewing with them and negotiating my package, they gave me an offer that was actually below my current position. And I very politely declined. And one of the partners in the firm called me and was like, Pallavi, I don't understand. Why won't you come over? Why did you decline the offer? And I was like, well, I'm not seeing progression. Like I met your team. Everyone's been in the same role for year over year. I'm looking for a place that I can grow in. And I want to know that there's going to be a chance for me to grow into different positions in the firm and be part of the leadership team. And he immediately heard me and he's like, I'm going to put you in touch with one of our other resources that you haven't talked to. He's been growing in the company and we're actually putting together a career plan for everybody in our company. I was like, great. Another was like, I wanted certain type of projects and the work I wanted to be able to do and lead teams again. And they're like, yes, we will make that happen. And lastly, I was like, I need to be paid better. This offer is below the salary I received today. And they actually met me on all of those terms because I was able to negotiate. I knew my worth. I used the power of no. I knew my strengths and capabilities. And that's really when I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually do this. And after that, everywhere else I worked, I negotiated. I learned my worth. Even at Candor today, we pick and choose the clients we work with because we know our strengths and capabilities and we want to really shine on those and give the clients the best in those areas. But I didn't do it alone. I will tell you, throughout my journey, I found my tribe. And my tribe changed along the way, and it still does. And it was always around the needs I had of what I needed in that moment. So I always sought out mentors that were in a place that I one day wanted to be so I could learn from them, because lessons learned in your own life are the best advice you're going to receive from anybody else. So I sought out those mentors who had been CEOs in companies or started their own or changed technologies, and just asked them questions, found time to be consistent with them, and actually verbally ask them to be my mentor. Anytime I find somebody, even today, to say that I feel like I can learn a lot from, I do ask them. I'm like, would you be my mentor? And there are times, sometimes they will say no because they don't have the time, or they don't feel like they're going to do justice to the needs I have. And that's the power of no as well, is for everybody to know when to say no. And then there's times when the mentors are like, yes, happy to do it, but here's what I can commit to you. And having those conversations and those negotiations make it really important and really help set the bar for the relationships you build. And then I've had role models. I have famous role models that I look up to. I have personal role models that I look up to. My father being one of the biggest role models in my life. And then I follow industry leaders to see what's happening, to stay relevant, to be able to learn and absorb, read articles, and see what their journeys look like. Outside of having mentors, role models, and leaders, I also really lean in on my peers who are at different parts of their own journeys, to learn from them, to support them, and have a symbiotic relationship. And then to like check myself and make sure I'm not going crazy, I have my core friends that keep me grounded, that are there to support me, even if they don't know what I do in Salesforce, even if they don't understand the consulting world, because it's important to just find your tribe in the most authentic way possible to ensure that you are being true to yourself, but you're constantly filling your cup as you're pouring yourself out to others. And this has been part of my secret sauce of feeling blessed and lucky. Like we were talking on the Golden Hoodie panel, we were talking about community. I will tell you, the Trailblazer community has given me mentors and role models. I've met industry leaders through it. I have wonderful peers who have now become my friends. And I have this beautiful tribe inside the community, but I also have a tribe outside of the community to ensure that all the areas that I don't have strengths and capabilities on, I have people I can lean in on to get advice, to get support, to really make me whole in a 360 way, to really be as successful for myself and as authentic for myself as possible. So, be true to yourself, be authentic you, true to the core, right? I love that session Parker does, but it really also resonates with me of like me being true to the core for what we did, what I've done with my journey, how I've picked and chosen where I wanted to go for my next career step, even how I built Candor today, creating the name Candor was very true to my core. I wanted to do something in a way that was disrupting the industry for consulting. I can't tell you how many times we don't get into the 50-page documents and the 200 PowerPoint slides that I used to do in my other consulting firms. We try to keep it simple and succinct and candor, and we're honest and transparent with our customers. And sometimes they take a step back and they're like, wait, we haven't had this before. This is not what consulting is. I'm like, yeah, we're changing consulting. We're going to disrupt it because I want to be authentic. I want to be me. I want to have fun while I'm doing this and really enjoy all the things in my life. And so when I even built Candor, I kept it true to myself of wanting to enjoy traveling, wanting to enjoy my hiking and snowboarding. So I created a global remote company because that was what was the right fit for me. And as we started growing, it became the right fit for our team members who wanted that lifestyle of being able to work remotely, do good stuff, but also have time to integrate their life into work versus having work-life balance. I don't, being in consulting all my life, working those crazy hours, missing birthdays has never been fun for me. Not being available for my family. Like, kid you not, the week my sister was getting married, I was going live with my CPQ. So half the time at her wedding as her maid of honor, I was on a laptop. And that was not okay. So I wanted to build a company that you could integrate life into your work and have it symbiotic. So I'll leave you with that of being authentic. And, my Indian culture, my heritage really is integrated into what we do at Candor today as well, and how I live my life. And I'll pause here to see if anyone has any questions.
Pallavi, thank you so much for sharing your honest and authentic story with us today. Your example about testing a code or not testing a code is very special. I think it is important to share not only success stories, but sharing real life examples. And this is very important lesson here. We are allowed to make mistakes as long as we learn from them. And I love seeing how this has resonated with the audience, judging by the comments in the chat. Okay, let me read some of the questions we have in the chat.
Sure.
Your journey as a trailblazer is truly inspiring. Looking back, what is one piece of advice you would give to someone who is just starting their career in the Salesforce ecosystem? Like for the newcomers who want to enter the ecosystem now, how can they start?
Yeah, so I will tell you this. First, think about what you really want. One of the exercises I did when I was looking for my next job between Verity to Pierce, Washington, one of my mentors actually helped me through it was, what are you good at? What do you enjoy? What can you get paid for? And I wrote them down into different circles. And it turned out I really enjoy volunteer work, nonprofit work, but I'm not going to get paid for it. And I, at the time, also was like, what is my non-negotiable, right? I was living in San Francisco, which is a very expensive city. I had student loans. So for me at the time, getting a salary at a certain amount was the most important thing. So I could sustain my lifestyle there. And so figuring out your non-negotiables, so then it's easy to say no to the things that you can because those are your flags, but you know what your non-negotiables are. And then knowing that I was good at volunteering and I enjoyed it and I'm good at it, but I'm not going to get paid for it. But then I looked like I'm good at consulting too, and I can get paid for it. And because my non-negotiable at the time was getting a salary, that made more sense for me. And so then I was like, okay, I can still fill my cup of volunteering and the nonprofit by volunteering in different areas in my free time. right? So it's really first about figuring it out, because in my user group, we have people who come and they're entering the ecosystem and they're just like, I'm looking for a job. I'm like, well, that doesn't help me. What are you looking for? And I think there's a bit of misguidance where a lot of times everyone thinks to enter the ecosystem, you have to just go get your admin cert and become an admin. No, like think about what your skills are. So I'll give you a secret. I don't have an admin cert. I have 0 certs. I barely go into the system. I don't know how to configure the system,
That's a
because
big
I never
here.
did that in my career, right? My goals in my journey in my careers was testing the software, talking to the business and solution design, think through it, pull the right requirements, guide them through the journey. And I had an amazing team of architects all the time throughout my career, from Accenture to Pierce Washington to Acumen. They were the experts. They could build a system. I never had to build it. So when I started Candor, I still leveraged my capabilities and started the company. And then I brought the technical pieces into the technical team members in to fill that. So think about what you want to do. You can be a marketer and transition into Salesforce. You don't have to be a Salesforce admin to be part of the ecosystem. Take what you know and then find your fit inside the ecosystem.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I have one more question for you. You've led so many organizations through digital transformation. What do you think is the biggest challenge companies face when adopting new technology nowadays? And how do you help them to overcome it?
That's a great question, because that's why Candor started, actually. So remember that CPQ project I was telling you, going live in the middle of my sister's wedding? And it took us 1.5 years to implement it at Vanguard, which is a very big financial firm in the US. 6 months later, they canceled it. They unraveled the whole thing. They were like, never mind, it's not for us. And I can give you more stories of those that I've built, right? So it really is about, and the reason they unraveled is they never understood it. They didn't go on the journey as well as they could have, because there wasn't enough organizational buy-in. So part of making it successful and making sure people are actually using it and stays relevant and the digital transformation is successful is not just jumping into the solution, but really understanding the business needs, the business priorities, and making sure all the solutions we're building tie to those needs and can grow with them long term. But then there's a whole aspect of change management, right? And that's part of the reason that Vanguard project failed. It wasn't so much that we didn't build to the business needs. They didn't believe in change management. So they didn't get in front of the users for change. Change is uncomfortable for all of us as humans. It's just a psychological thing. I personally don't like change myself. So the more we get in front of it to say, hey, this is coming and this is why, and give the reasoning and the context, and then get people to use it and get familiar with it, especially in those like testing iterative phases, to ensure we are meeting their business needs and things like that. That's where digital transformations can then be successful. And even today, we sometimes miss the mark.
Yes. Pallavi, your career journey is very impressive and it's a true inspiration to many of us. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.